want to thank everybody for joining us today. The Business Builder Speaker Series was an idea born out of the COVID days in March of 2020. Since we couldn't get together in person at that time, we thought we'd host a seminar on Zoom where we could get together once a month and share tips and tricks from industry experts that will help your real estate business grow. We are linked on all of the socials. We encourage you to find and to link with us. On our website is a list of all of our Business Builder Speaker Series, so you'll be able to go back and review any topics of interest to you and to share them with other people that might benefit from those presentations. In case you missed it, there's a list of the speakers we've had year to date. Go ahead and mark your calendar. Our Business Builder Speaker Series is the third Wednesday every month at 10 a.m. So next month, it'll be May 16th at 10 a.m. And our speaker next month is going to be Warren and Melissa Horbelt on a great topic, what your broker wished every agent knew. So just tips and tricks for agents to understand their broker's position and why they do the things that they do. We do appreciate you taking your time to join us today, and we hope that we will make the most of your time. To help make the most of your time, we encourage you to ask questions and participate utilizing the chat box. Today, I'd like to introduce Bill Borden, broker at High Caliber Realty. We saw a post he made on social medias on understanding condo associations and homeowners associations. And we said, this is a bright guy with a good topic and somebody we'd like to feature on this month's Business Builder. We entitled his presentation, Understanding a Condo Owner Association and Homeowner Association Issues, How to Fine-Tune Your Due Diligence Skills. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our guest speaker, Bill Borden, today. Bill, I am going to stop my screen share and let you take it away.
Oh, I personally like the screen share. It looks great.
I will leave it up there until you tell me you need it, Bill.
Okay, well, Jamie, Tracy, Lisa, all of you guys that are here, I appreciate it. This is something that I run into quite often. You know, a lot of times we as real estate licensees, uh, we don't like to read the contract. A lot of people just don't read the contract. They fill out the first page on the realtor's form and hope all of the fine print does what it's supposed to do. When it comes to a condominium HOA or HOA, any type of PUD where they're charging a fee that has that fee way ahead of any type of secondary mortgage, first mortgage, those are fees that can really mess somebody up. So we put in the HOA or appraisal, or I'm sorry, HOA community management amendment, but it's very insufficient for what you need. For instance, a lot of times the HOA letter is very pricey. We really should be seeing, instead of just the initial cost of transferring over the initiation fee, or are there any assessments due or any assessments anticipated, or what the monthly payment is, what else do we really need on that? Well, a few things. One of those things is, what does that HOA provide? Now, there is check boxes on there, but as agents both selling and buying, we need to really research that. Had one not too long ago that nowhere on there did the seller mention that there were private streets. Well, after a little bit of research, while it was small, we found out that the streets in the 55 and older community were private, no guard gate, had green signs on it like it was public streets, which is sometimes a giveaway. But upon research, when those streets get old, it is not up to the county or the municipality where it's located, but it's up to the residents to pave those streets, fix those potholes, deal with that. So we needed to find that out. So you want to make sure what's provided to start with. The other thing we need to make sure of is who's running it. An HOA is a business. HOAs are run a lot of times by homeowners. even if they've hired a person that is supposedly a professional at it, or a company, they are still controlled by the homeowner's board. So you need to see who's on that homeowner's board. It's very important for your client, if you're buying, to make sure that you know what type of background they have. Are they more interested in shampoo bottles in the window that you can see from the street, or the top of a boat you can see from the front yard parked there? Or are they more concerned about making sure that the property values are where they need to be, that the payments cover all the budget, and that there's plenty of reserves for any unexpected expenses? Uh, they don't always make the best decisions. For instance, one thing that you'll find, a lot of HOAs want to limit rentals. Well, when you think about limiting rentals, if you look at the appraisal process, the cost approach sets the highest limit of value. We typically go by the market data approach. The market data approach, or the comparable sales approach, some people refer to it as, is more indicative of the market. But when that fails, when people aren't buying, we rely on what sets the lowest limit of value, the income approach. And that's the investors that are coming in and buying just based on based on what that house will produce. Well, typically an HOA will say, "Oh no, I don't want rentals in my neighborhood." But then in a downturn, something like '08, uh, you have lost that floor to the market values in the subdivision. So if that HOA is voting to get rid of rentals, or you're limited with rentals, even though there are ways around it, you've got an issue with the board and the mentality of that particular subdivision. When it's really best, you can allow the renters, you can allow them, and you can allow a landlord. You can also charge an extra assessment fee if they're renting the house. You can make sure they adhere to all the HOA guidelines as renters, or you can make sure that they adhere to all the county or municipality ordinances to make sure that those houses are where they're, so you still have control to keep the house in the neighborhood from being painted orange, or keep the house in the neighborhood from having high grass. All of those, just enforce the rules you already have, and saying, instead of saying, "Oh no, we don't want renters," because then you, in a downturn in economics, that particular subdivision is going to be hurt because they don't have that floor that appraisers can use to make sure that, oh, well, an investor will buy that. Because what if an investor can't buy it? And then you have the situation where if a bank actually forecloses in a downturn, if that bank forecloses in a downturn, they can't rent the house and it just sits there vacant. There was a subdivision out in West Cobb during '08 that over half the houses were sitting there vacant. What was that doing to everybody that was making their payment, and what they could do as far as refinancing and making sure they didn't have to sell their house? So you have to advise your clients on what the ramifications are on some of these decisions that are made by the ill-informed or uninformed. When you're looking at the particular HOAs, there's you want to be sure what it has in there. I mean, how strict is it? Does it take care of the things that you want it to take care of? Are HOAs good or HOAs bad? I know we've all had people say, "I don't want to be in an HOA." Well, if they don't want to be in an HOA, they need 2 or 3 acres, because if they're not in an HOA, their neighbor could really wreak havoc and go to the lowest common denominator on whatever the municipalities are. They can have 10-inch grass, they can have cars sitting around the yard, even on concrete blocks if they're not careful, as long as they're registered. So you look at those particular covenants and you make sure that those covenants can be enforced to take care of what you want to do. A lot of times you'll see approved by the architectural committee. Ask the question, who's on the architectural committee? Because a lot of times these covenants are written so that the builder is on the architectural committee until he is done, and then the architectural committee dissolves. You need to make sure that the HOA has in place a sustainable plan for making sure that the houses aren't painted wrong, the grass is mowed, certain fences are not a crazy color, those type of things. Street parking, HOAs try to govern street parking, but the street's public, so it's kind of hard for them to do that unless they're private citizens. So you want to make sure that they maybe put the cars in the garage or whatever, street parking, because street parking, in most cases, in most of the counties, you can't leave it there for a long time or it becomes an illegal park job. That's just some of the things that you need to look at. If you're listing, find out who the HOA people are. I bet if we took a vote right now, and I'm not even going to ask, very few people even find out who the president of the HOA is and call them and see what kind of attitude they have. And I had one a couple of weeks ago. President came walking up into the driveway when I was putting the sign up and said, "Oh, you're listing this house. That's great. I'm the HOA president. We're glad to have you here. We want to keep our values up. Why don't you put a directional sign out here? We'll make sure it stays up." That's a huge change because they understand. And a lot of times you have to explain to these HOA presidents, the more you help me, the more I can help you make more money on your unrealized gain as your appraisal values go up. One of the big things that I wrote the article about that Doug was referring to were some of the concerns as far as what are adequate reserves to provide a financial stability to that particular community, as well as what's the budget and is the monthly budget sustainable for that particular community. You've got to see that budget. Now, our assessments and the potential assessment, are they anticipated? A lot of these people don't know if they're anticipated, and that's the only thing we request on the Community Management Association document. Are these assessments anticipated? But you need to know, what does that community provide? Is it a condo where they're taking care of the roofs? Is it a condo where they're taking care of all of the yards? Is it a condo where they're taking care of the complete exterior? Where does the condo end? Does it end at the sheetrock and the paint inside is the owner's? Or does it end at the exterior wall, so all of the electricity, plumbing, and everything is the responsibility of the owners? Depending on what kind of development, if it's a high-rise condo, those type of things will matter so that you know what type of reserves and what kind of budget that you actually need. And it's really your responsibility as a seller's licensee to broker to tell them, we need to find this stuff out so I can properly market your property. And as a buyer's licensee, it's your responsibility to find this stuff out so you can advise your buyer why this may be a better option over here, even though you're paying more money per month because it covers more things. So you need to discover these things and not just rely on uh, the document that we've been provided that is the lowest common denominator of everything. How do you determine how much money the HOA spends every year? How much money the general fund has? How much money the reserve fund has? How do we figure what the payments are and what what's sufficient? Um, all of these, all this information is available to the seller. So if you're a buyer's licensee, you want to write that into the contract. We want this, 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 and this, and have the ability to get more so that we can do a reserve study to see if it has enough reserves. There are actually laws in some states that require a certain amount of reserves to be held. There are not laws, but guidelines that FHA and Fannie go by to look at the reserves to see if there is enough reserves there. So there are things that you have to do to look. You can hire uh, professional reserve studies done, but let's face it, if somebody's looking at a condo, well, the condos came about because people wanted to uh, still maintain a life uh, as well as single family for a lesser price, and it was based off our co-ops and those type of properties we had in in New York in the large cities. And they didn't really become prevalent until the 1970s or so when interest rates were going above 10% for the first time after the savings and loan crisis. So people that are buying condos really are buying it for two reasons: to maintain that same standard of lifestyle as far as uh, wanting the larger home, wanting the larger uh, space and luxuries, but they're also doing it a lot of times because they want to not have to worry about the upkeep, the outside, the yards, that sort of thing. Uh, but they're paying for it, and you need to make sure they're paying enough, as bad as that sounds. Is the budget sufficient? Are they going in the hole every month depending on the number of payments they're making? You have to consider, and it's a very simple calculation. How much are they spending? And then how many units there are times what each unit pays. Does it cover it? And a lot of times you'll find that it doesn't cover it because these associations are not run by business people. They're run by the no Karens on here. They're run by the Karen that wants to run down the street and make sure people are mowing their yard. And that's the reason they go for the election. So you have as a professional, step up and say, why are you only charging X when it's costing you Y every month to run this? Now, one factor you also need to add in there is how much of that payment every month for each unit is going toward the actual reserves. You know, if they're furnishing the roof, what happens when the roof goes bad? Well, your buyer doesn't want an assessment. When you're walking the complex or walking the neighborhood, if there's a swimming pool that looks like it's going to need some serious repairs, do they actually have a reserve account? Have they done a reserve spreadsheet, a reserve study to know how much money they're going to need? Because you don't want to call from your client 6 months from now, I just got hit with a $5,000 assessment and now I've got to pay that. And they do have to pay it. So you need to look at those different those different assessments. One, the budget and how much of that budget price is going into the reserve account. And then you need to look at, as far as, so you're looking at several things. You're looking at who's running it, what it says, what the covenants say, what is covered, what is not covered, how much money they have to take care of all of the repairs, and how much money they have to pay the bills, and are they running in the red or in the black? So you have to anticipate these things. Best way for us to do it is to get the information from the sellers. And once you've done a reserve study 2 or 3 times, you'll be able to, one, talk more intelligently to your client, be it seller or buyer, to tell them what really needs to be done as far as that. Coming from an appraiser standpoint, when I look at appraising, a lot of times buyers or sellers go, well, are you going to do a market analysis? No, I'm not going to do a market analysis. I've done enough market analysis that I can see it in my head. Well, you can see these in your head once you've done them. So I want to take just a minute before we go into more questions and stuff, about 10 minutes here, and go over how do you actually perform a reserve study? Well, we know how to perform a budget, I'm sure, but I just want to take the second and go over this. So Doug, if you wouldn't mind me sharing my screen now.
Take it away, Bill. Thank you.
Although that one looked really good, I must say. Okay, so this is one that I did recently. Uh, so we're just going to start up here at the top. You want to look and see what you actually need to roof replacement, security system update. This is actually for a business community. Entrance sign repair, all these type of things you need to determine yourself. If they don't have one, you need to determine if these things are required and covered by the HOA. Once you're able to do that, then you need to come up with a lifespan. So let's just stick with roof replacement right now because it's a simple one. This particular complex, roof replacement, well, lifespan of a roof is about 20 years. And again, all of this is subjective. You kind of need to know, or you need to find out what's going on as far as things that are happening in the business world is how much things cost. So you've got a life of 20 years. Only 10 years is already done 10 years, so it needs another 10 years of reserves to catch up. So we need to catch that up. Well, the total amount would be 60,000 to replace these roofs. They have a half-life of they're gone. They're gone, halfway gone, which means we need to make sure that the assessment or the reserve account has $30,000 in it. I hate my camera being up here and me looking at the screen, so y'all have to bear with me. So the required reserve payment for the next 10 years is simple math, $3,000. This particular complex, when you divide it by the number of units, that means that $3,000, we need $10.42 per month to make up the extra 30,000. We need 30,000 right now. So when I look at the reserve account, there needs to be at least a balance of 30,000 in that reserve account right now, and I need to be putting $10.42 a month per in there. So when I go down through here and I take these same numbers, here is a fence and gate that needs to be done, lifespan of 30,000 or 30 years, it needs to be done right now, 38,000. That's $4.40 per unit. Down at the very bottom here of this particular group, there was an emergency repair for one of the buildings of 14,650. It hopefully will never happen again, but they're 1465 short. There is no monthly fee for that. So as you go down through here and you take the life in years of each unit, the time you need before repairs, the time you're missing, which is the special assessment and or reserve account, and then the time remaining that I can make up these yearly requirements and divide it out by the number of units in the complex. That means I need to look at the reserve account right now in this particular complex, and that reserve account needs an infusion of $112,750, or there better be $112,750 in the current reserve account for this particular complex. And that is your reserves that need to sustain. I need to be putting on top of that an additional $49.22 every month from every unit into that reserve account, so there will be enough money to pay the rest of these. And that's the way you need to look at these particular, whether it be an HOA, the condo, townhomes, anything that has something that's going to come before the mortgage that's recorded in time before the deed that they can charge for, because you don't want to get a special assessment. I'm going to jump down to the bottom here. This particular complex did not have a reserve account adequate to pay everything. So I jumped down to the special assessment. Every unit in this complex, all 24 of them, have to pay $4,697 just to catch up the reserve account in this particular complex. So I have to prepare my client. If you buy one of these units, you can expect around a $5,000 assessment in the very near future, because that is an issue. As far as the budget goes, I look at what's provided by the HOA. And as far as what's provided by the HOA, I look at the yearly cost. It's simple, just like doing a budget for your home or your office. I look at the monthly cost. I divide it out per unit. I need $217.75 just to make the numbers work. This particular complex has been charging 50 or $100 per unit for the last 10 years. That is not a good thing. So it has to get caught up. On top of that 217, I need to add 4822. When I add the 4822 um, to the 217, which you see it here, this right here, 49, 217. When I add all that together, it comes up to $230 if we put an anticipated 10% increase in there on just the monthly cost. That means that this complex is $130 upside down every month on what it's been paying, plus this particular complex needs a cash infusion of $4,600. So when I'm buying in here, I'm going to say your $100 is inadequate. Will your client still buy? Yes. But as a real estate professional, you need to prepare them. That $100 is inadequate. Write it as long as you can and don't bring it up to the board. But they're going to run out of money. And when they run out of money, you're going to get hit with a special assessment as well. So you have to do that math. Once you do these 2 or 3 times and you walk around the complex and you go, oh, well, they're paying for water, they're paying for sewer, they're paying for electric, pest. Oh, they're taking care of the parking lots, they're parking and repaving and stuff. You're going to know this complex would be fine if I looked at it and it had around 100,000 in the reserves. Then life is good. A lot of times state laws will require and or the insurance laws will require that not only you have enough of the 112 in the reserve, but you have an extra 25 or 50,000 in there. So you need to be aware of that as well. It's important, not that you're going to change this complex or not that you're going to change the way that complex runs. But if your client likes that particular condo unit, be it business or personal or townhome unit, and they like the location and it's just everything they want and it's in the great school district, then you need to look at what the budgeting is and um, what the rest of the clients are looking at. Um, you're not going to change their mind, and you're not going to go in unless you want to charge them $3,000 or $4,000 like I would uh, to do a professional reserve study on it. But you need to actually say to them, not to your client, or to your client, not to the board, that these are issues where choice B doesn't have these issues. Choice A has these issues. Make an informed decision. Then you as a professional have taken yourself one step above what all of the rest of the people out there that aren't spending the time to educate themselves on what they're doing, and you'll make a better real estate professional. So that I'm ready for questions. Jamie, Warren, anybody? Lisa, Monica, not Steve.
I'll go ahead and ask, how do you get a hold of these HOA presidents? I feel like a lot of times they're impossible to get a hold of.
You're in the seller. If you're a listing agent, you're going to want the seller to do it. You're going to want the seller to put you in touch with them. You're going to want to talk to them. I mean, that's just part of listing a condo. Sometimes they'll walk up and you don't have to track them down because they're nosy. But the sellers, they have the right to see all of that paperwork. They have the right to see the budgeting. They have the right to see all of that. So you want to get with your seller early on and get all that paperwork because if it's in good shape, then you have the ability to disclose to the potential buyer, this is a condo complex in great shape. The board consists of these professions. They've got adequate reserves, and they'll buy your listing over buying somebody else's listing that's in a less adequate, with less adequate reserves. If you're on the buyer side, then you're going to want to put it in your contract that you want to see these things specifically, and you want to have the board president or the board manager, and you want to know their contact information. And during your due diligence, you reach out to them and you get that stuff, and you make sure your due diligence extends past a couple of days past when you're able to obtain that stuff from the seller. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Good advice. This whole call has been excellent, by the way. Really, really
Thank
good
you, Warren.
information.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else?
No, I agree. It's been great and definitely some good info.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Jamie. Melissa, you've been nodding your head a lot. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah.
Yeah, I was a listing agent prior to us owning our own brokerage, and we ran into this a lot. And I can't tell you how many agents that just don't really pay attention to HOAs or communities. I mean, I even ran into them, even developing land, with different covenants where people want to just purchase and build. But the townhomes and the condos, this is just really superb advice. So yeah, I've gotten the finances from the HOAs and stuff and went over it with my client, but I just feel like this really is a missed opportunity on both sides.
Right.
And it's just really lack of education. So we're definitely going to bring this up to our agent. So I appreciate this call. It was very informative.
Thanks, Melissa.
Mhm.
And you guys, Doug's got my information. I'll give it to you now. Bill at High Caliber Realty, if you've got questions, highcaliberrealty.com. We share all the time. I'm always trying to help other brokerages. I've been at it 48 years now, and we're in 7 states. So I may get confused on my state laws from time to time. You hear me saying licensee instead of agent all the time now, but it's best if we push forward to make it much more professional, because these pre-licensing courses, I was going over with one of our we only hire either brokers or brand new agents that have never been mistrained by somebody else. And I was going over with one of the new agents that's going through a class right now. And I just realized last night getting ready to do this class, because I keep biting my tongue wanting to tell her in the real world it's like this. Like just get past the test, and then you can forget everything they're teaching you about what the politicians think you need to know to sell real estate in these classes. And we'll teach you what you need to know, because Doug will tell you, I'm sure he runs into it all the time at the closing table. Um, I'm fortunate in that, I've been in the industry I've been trying to get out of the industry for 48 years. So, I've been in the closing office, I've been in the appraisal office, I've been in all the different sides of it, so I can see how it all goes together. And there is so much that we need to do as brokers, to make sure our licensees are taking that next step. And so many come out trying to fight, but there's plenty to go around. It's a win-win. Just make it a win-win and help each other. Yeah, and that's why I'm here today. So if you guys need any help with any of this stuff, by all means, get a hold of Doug or get a hold of me.
I appreciate that, Bill. I would love to connect with you and collaborate sometime and just soak up some knowledge. I appreciate that.
Happy to. Okay, well, I'm done. If y'all don't have any other questions, I'm happy to be here. I allotted a whole hour and I ran through it kind of quick, but I think I covered it.
Bill, this is Doug. The question I had is, do you find that communities that have a professional property management association rather than just the local homeowners running a board, do they tend to do it better, or does that not really make a difference if they're using a professional property manager?
Option C, Doug. They tend to do it worse.
Okay.
They're in it to make the money. They charge outrageous prices for their HOA letter for the attorneys, the closing firms. They make that money. They don't put it back into the kitty every time, because what they're doing is merely at the bequest of the board. And the board is what you have to look at. You have to say, who's on the board? To use the modern term, are there a bunch of Karens, or there are actually people that know business, know how to work things, know how to do things? For when you look at the profession, and Jamie, Warren, I don't know about you guys, but Melissa mentioned she has a brokerage firm. You see so many agents that work for 20 years and know how to sell real estate and are great at selling real estate and fantastic at selling real estate. And then they go open to the brokerage firm and they fail because they don't know how to run a company. And an HOA is nothing more than a company. You have to know how to run a company. You have to know how to budget, all the different venture. I've got that USDA plant. I got butchers that know how to butcher a cow like crazy, but they don't know how to run a USDA plant. It's the profession of running a business. So the builder turns it over to the HOA, he washes his hands of it, he's done. And all these people that may or may not know how to do a business, they end up running this business. If anything, instead of we really ought to have a profession that is a HOA, condominium board advisory board. That what should we do in this particular situation? Not just somebody to collect the dues and somebody to send out notices and file liens. We need somebody, for instance, in the complex we're in, I'm on the HOA board. We've got a CPA on the HOA board. We've got a mortgage company on the HOA board. So we know how to run the business, and that's important. I think the management companies have just relegated themselves to be collection services and billing services.
Thank you for sharing. That's disappointing. I had hoped if you had a professional property management company, they would use the two spreadsheets like you demonstrated. What are our monthly operational expenses, and are we charging the right amount? And secondly, what are our future expenses, our operation on our maintenance budgets? It seems like they would provide that kind of guidance, provide those spreadsheets, provide guidance on what you need in reserves and how much you should be budgeting for, whether it's on a monthly, quarterly, or annually basis.
You'd be surprised how many of them don't even know about it. They were real estate agents that decided to go into management, and then it just grew and grew. Professional management company in Alaska that we used to manage that office complex up there where our office is. They were thrilled because we don't do property management, and I hired them to manage that. And the broker that's in charge of that management company, 4 or 5 years ago, his eyes were opened, and he does do that now. Because I said, well, what about this and this? This is where I'm at on my reserve account. And well, we don't do that. I said, why not? And so it's important, sometimes you can educate these property management firms. Some of them are doing it. Well, I'll say some of them are doing it. And some of them, when you say, what's your reserve spreadsheet look like? Do you have your most recent reserve study? Yeah, you can just Google professional reserve studies or something like that. And there's actually companies out there that'll charge you $4, $5, $6,000 to do a reserve study. Exactly what I just showed you guys how to do in 10 or 15-minute walk through or drive through the property. And just, you're not doing it for the management company. You're doing it for your buyer and or your seller. So you're just looking, oh, gee, this thing's going to need roofs. Wonder how much these roofs are going to cost. You're in the real estate business. You know about what those roofs are going to cost. So, gee, this place is going to need to be painting. Wonder what you don't have to go get estimates, and you don't have to be exact. You just need to know if you're within 20, 30, 40, $50,000, if the reserve's got enough in it. So, you're not going to get hit. You need to know if you're within $250,000, if you're in a 400 or 500 complex house. So, or subdivision of houses. So you don't have to worry about being exact like a professional company would do. You just need to have an understanding of it where you can go, this is a bad deal. We need to buy this one over here, or we need to lower the price because we need to explain to the seller how we're going to have a $10,000 assessment if we're not careful. Or as from a seller standpoint, well, we need to tell the buyers we're much better than the other people because we're doing this. So the knowledge is power from that perspective, and you need to be able to do that. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
I had a person that we knew who ran the HOA in a condominium complex. And when I took my client there, she said, get your client out of here now. We're in trouble. We don't have any reserves, and we're gonna be in real trouble. And we left.
Yep. Thank God they were honest. I mean, there's a complex right up the street from our office a large complex that had a huge insurance issue, and their insurance went up and their budget's low, and they're in bad shape. People buying in there are just not getting the right representation they need. So yeah, that's a good point, Steve. Anything else? Come on, guys. I allotted a whole hour. Warren, Monica, Jamie, come on, somebody.
Stump the professor.
You want to make
Oh.
sure too that there's more than one association, especially like more resort areas like in the mountains. And
Good
places
point.
places like that. And then you want to find out, what those fees are and the ability that they can charge for special assessments.
Excellent idea. Especially like folks like Bent Tree and Big Canoe, and then what Lisa says as far as a master association, and then a regular homeowners association, as well as, are there any amenities that you're going to get assessed for that you have to pay an extra membership fee for, like the golf course at Brookstone or something from that perspective? That's excellent. Anything else? Well, Doug, thank you for having me. We'll get back on here and talk about all these crazy forms. And funny thing, I just have to mention, because I know I got a couple of brokers on here. When they did that realtor judgment, that didn't affect us at all. We've been requiring buyers, and we've been negotiating commissions for years. I don't know about the rest of you, but one of the things that we're doing now is still negotiating on the buyer. You bring me a full price offer, I'll pay you a full price commission. Bring me a lower offer, we're going to talk. So, all right. But thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for attending.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
In
Thank you
closing,
very much.
I'd like to thank Bill Borden, with broker with High Caliber Realty, for being our guest speaker today. Give us a few days, up to a week, and we'll have the presentation recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, linked to on our website, and you'll get an email when the video is ready. And we appreciate you joining us today and wish you all the best in your real estate. And thank you for joining us today.